I call this meeting of the January 6th meeting of the Paducah Planning and Zoning Commission to order and ask that you stand with us as we say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Summer. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Benberry, Mr. Bradford.
Here.
Mr. Morrison.
Here.
Ms. Pollard.
Here.
Ms. Shrimpton.
Here.
Mr. Wade.
Here.
Chair Casillas.
Here. We have a presentation tonight from the Director of Planning, Tamara Tracy.
Hello, and welcome to 2020. It sounds kind of odd to say that, 2020, 2020, but welcome. And welcome new Commissioner Valerie Pollard from the URCDA Board. This is the first meeting of the Planning Commission that will be acting as the URCDA agency. And I just wanted to go over a few items relating to that, and also a few items that will be coming down the road for 2020, so that you know what we're going to be doing, because in the department we are hopefully very soon winding down a few big projects, and we're going to be turning our attention to zoning matters, which is in my sandbox, if you would, if I could be so casual, in terms of what I enjoy and my primary focus and expertise. And so I've been wanting to dive into that extensively since I've arrived 2 years ago, and this is the first time we've been able to do that. But first, let's start with the business at hand, which is the Urban Renewal and Community Development Agency is now consolidated into the Planning Commission. Urban renewal agencies have been around since the 60s. Paducah's had one almost that long, off and on. They've done a fabulous job. However, as projects wind down, the volume of work winds down as well, and the advantages of having a separate agency are diminished, and it becomes less and less efficient. The Planning Commission has always, since KRS has established planning commissions, has always had the responsibility of overseeing urban renewal, community development, and housing actions. The Urban Renewal Agency is merely another tool that they allowed us to use if we wanted to. It was not mandatory. Paducah used it and used it well. Now we would like to move into a technique that many other communities are using, and that is developing and using community development organizations or neighborhood organizations and such to do our housing and redevelopment work, because with many hands we can get more done. And to that end, we also want to consolidate and keep the function of those alive here. And it's most efficient by putting it in with the Planning Commission, because you all meet twice a month instead of once a month, which currently the URCDA, or how it was, the frequency the URCDA was meeting. And so having it under the Planning Commission made sense from an efficiency standpoint. We're more nimble in terms of meeting the needs of our customers and getting decisions made, and also when there is a need to postpone a decision for more information, we don't have to wait a long time. It's only just a couple weeks, which is usually just enough time to get that needed piece of information, and then the decision can be made. So it facilitates very efficient flow. So that's the background of how it all came to be, and that is why you're here. Now, the next question is, well, how is all of this going to operate in a very real day-to-day basis? And I just kind of wanted to go over that. If you would look at your current agenda, you would see that item 5, well, first of all, you'll notice it's very similar to what you've seen in the past. Right. And but the big exception is item 5. You've got a big chunk of cases that are called URCDA cases. Well, it's very simple. When you hit that point in time on your agenda, the chair would basically state that at this time we are conducting business for the URCDA. And let's call the first case. And then you go about hearing the case. With a staff report that is associated with that case, it should have in the staff report the criteria that you are to be using to make a decision. And hopefully, if staff is doing the great job that I know they will be doing, you'll have the information that you need to make that decision. Once you go through all those cases, you will come to the next item on the agenda, which is item number 6, and again, the chair says we are now conducting the business of the Planning Commission, and then boom, you go into that. The minutes that staff creates, we will reflect that. Now, when it comes to calling for the vote, well, 5 members are indicated by city ordinance to be appointed to the URCDA, and the other 2 members of the Planning Commission are considered alternates because we don't want to end up in a case where we have lack of quorum. Now, how does that work on the vote? Staff will call the vote, and everyone will vote. Just go ahead and everyone vote, and the burden will be on staff to outline what votes count when the alternate is needed to step up and be counted. So the thought being is you don't need to worry about who's here, who's not here. Just go ahead and vote, and when we tally it up, it will be reflected as such in the minutes and in the final record. So that way we don't have to worry about, all of that, picking and choosing. Put that on us. That's easier for us to do, and the big thing that we want you to do is focus on the cases at hand, because we're asking you to do a lot, and that's where we want you to focus. You don't need to focus on the mechanics, if you will. Josh, Katie, myself, we will handle that. Put that on us. So that's pretty much the straightforward nature of how it would, on a very real, tangible way, be handled. The minutes will be divided very similar to the agenda, so you'll be able to clearly see where they are, or which section they are under, and so that if anyone wants to review the minutes and look for those specific items, it will be readily identifiable. Does anyone have any questions thus far?
I have a question about minutes, and that is, can we approve both sets of minutes, not together, but individually at the beginning, or would you prefer that they be in the sections in which we're conducting business?
Just do them all it doesn't matter. I would suggest doing them all at once.
Yeah, I think so too.
That way it's just easier for everyone, because it will be somewhat rare for there to be an issue on the minutes as it is now. It's very rare. Let's see, what other else?
I did.
Commissioner Shrimpy?
Go over the part again about how many members are required under the
Under the URCDA action, 5 are required. And, well, no, wait, I'm sorry. There are 5 members on the URCDA, and there is not a latitude to have more than that, but there is latitude to have alternates. And so what we want to have happen, such as today, we have 6 members of the commission on right here. If we have a URCDA case, which we do, the vote will be called, everyone will cast their vote. Now, sometimes, for whatever reason, people may be gone. We want the cases to go forward with as many people as possible making and being part of that decision. And so that's why we want to have alternates. And so and for an alternate to be effective, the alternate needs to be here and hear it all. But again, when we get to the point where you vote, everyone will vote, and Josh will tally all the votes, and the votes that count basically will be the URCDA members, and if there are any openings, the alternate vote will count. So you will have a full 5.
So currently, we just have one URCDA member on the commission?
No, there are 5. Here.
Bob Wade.
Will you pass this down?
Formerly member. Bob was also on.
Not this one. Kathy Crecilius, David Morrison, Valerie Pollard, Lorraine Schramke, and Bob Wade. Those 5 people are considered
Okay,
URCDA members.
I see.
And
That's where I was confused.
And then if
Yes.
I
one
didn't
of
know
us
I was
isn't
one.
here-
you are now, or as of December,
See, I didn't get one. Yeah,
the end of December, you are.
okay,
And we
I don't
need
have a date.
5, not a quorum, we need 5.
there we go.
Pardon?
No, you need a simple
Did you know
majority.
you were one?
Simple majority is quorum.
That's why I kept asking the question.
No.
She's not 5.
Yes, she is.
Yes. I'm
Okay,
part
I don't
the
think
5.
any of us were aware
Here it
that,
is.
that we were one.
Correct. This was just passed.
Okay,
Yeah, literally, this was just passed at the end of the last meeting in.
I see.
But should you not be here, Mr. Bradford can be an alternate.
Yes.
And vote, so we can pass. Or should I?
Got it. Okay, I'm sorry if I was dense on that, but
No,
That's
a very good question.
I didn't know who the 5 were either.
We weren't notified, so we didn't know.
That's right.
okay, very good, thank you.
So that tells me that you did not receive a letter indicating
We
this.
did not.
Okay. We'll see that one is sent out in, what is it, in retro. I'm not sure of the word for that, but.
Well, it's not just that we didn't receive a letter, we didn't understand the process of the
Yes,
combined board, so we appreciate it. Now,
that's what I'm here for.
there you go.
This is hopefully the first of many things that, many evolvements for the commission over the next probably realistically 2 years. The first thing that we would want, that we're going to be exploring in writing and then working with you on, is going to be crafting the ordinance to use the alternative zoning process that is an option under Kentucky revised statutes. The other item that will follow that is amendment to the bylaws and rules for the operation of your hearings. And we want to do that for efficiency purposes, as well as to make it more user-friendly for the people using our process, as well as the public who are watching on television or in the off chance they're in the audience. Right now, this can all seem very off-putting to many people. It's hard enough for many people to come up and speak in public, let alone being able to come up and speak in public and be nervous about, am I in order, am I out of order, should I be off the table or on the table or under the table or maybe roll around with the table? I don't know. But all that can be very off-putting. And we want to make this process more open and more available to people. As far as community engagement, you are the front line. You are community members. You are making the decision. There is nothing more spot on in terms of community engagement than your function here. And so we want that to be open to the rest of the community so that they can participate. However, what we don't want to do is create a situation where there is unnecessary friction because of that. So we have to make that balance thoughtfully. And so over the course of the next couple of months, we want to go over that with you and work through some of these things. To that end, your first meeting in February, I would like to suggest that we have a working meeting. It would be a public meeting, but it would be a working meeting in which we would all sit around the table, probably in the anteroom or maybe in the team room, and go over these possibilities and these changes. And I think this is going to be very exciting because the public is wanting to know and wanting to engage more, but they don't feel like they will have impact, and they don't know how to have impact. And I'm hoping that together we can figure out a way to open that up more. And then finally, the third item is on the strategic plan, which the Board of Commissioners has been working everyone and staff on, going through. One of the items that is at their top of their list is the updating of the zoning ordinance to modernize it. And I would like to suggest to you that we would approach that in a way that is bringing the ordinance up to a modern framework and modern standards, and get that set before we make any leaps of significant change. But that is one of the things that I want to discuss with you on February. So I guess the question I have for you, and I'm not expecting an answer right at this moment, but over the next week or so, if you could indicate whether or not you would be present or be able to make that February meeting. It would be at the same scheduled time.
You're talking about the first meeting?
Yes, February 3rd. Because I would like to have everyone there. And if not, we can put it off 2 weeks. But that's what I'd like to suggest that we start with.
Can someone send us a reminder like you do?
Oh, definitely.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions?
And I'm assuming the comprehensive plan update is going to be part of all of this procedure as well.
Yes.
Is there any swearing in or process? Are we already sworn in?
You're already sworn.
Already? Okay. I want to make sure it's all.
Although it's a great oath, I would like to do it again.
It's kind of like you didn't take one step forward or something. Sorry.
Yeah. Deadly.
Are you going to commission a duel?
No, ma'am.
Well, we have
That's a
that.
no, ma'am.
Oh, we have that new business in town about anger. So
Yes.
anyway, so well, if there are no further questions, that's all I have for you today.
Thank you very much for being here tonight.
She was on.
Yeah, but we're going to do the election of officers. Do you want to handle that?
All right, open the floor. Easy.
Yeah. Yes, let us open the floor for nominations for the election of officers.
I like Kathy Cresilius for chair.
Second. Oh, excuse me.
We have a nomination for Chair Cecilius to continue as chairman, and it's been duly seconded. Do we want to do the officers individually, or?
We always do the chair first, and the chair takes over for vice chair.
Well, that's the best idea yet. Are there any other nominations?
I move the nominations be closed.
It's been moved and seconded. Therefore, let us go directly to the vote. Josh, if you would call the roll.
Mr. Bradford?
Does your motion need to be voted on? Is that what we're voting on? The motion to close
Close
nominations?
nominations.
Yeah. And move directly to the vote for Chairman Cresilius to be chairman.
Okay. Mr. Bradford?
Aye.
Mr. Morrison?
Aye.
Ms. Pollard?
Aye.
Ms. Shranky?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Chair Cresilius?
Aye. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now that we need to vote on them,
Actually, accept.
now the nominations are closed.
Well, I feel like there's two separate
There were
Well, I
motions
think
here.
they-
there were two separate.
Yes.
There's a nomination,
I think
a
when-
motion to close the nominations, and now we need a motion
Acceptance
For
by
acclamation, that's what she was
Adopt.
getting at, yeah.
We did not do that, so. we
That's
need to
okay, we'll
vote.
vote again. It's all right.
Okay. Mr. Bradford?
Aye.
Mr. Morrison?
Aye.
Ms. Pollard?
Aye.
Ms. Shranky?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Chair Cresilius?
Aye. I would like to now open the floor for nominations for vice chair.
I would like to nominate Ms. Schramke for vice chair.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? I would
Mr.
entertain.
Wade, you was second.
I would entertain a motion that we close nominations and elect Ms. Shramke by acclamation.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Wade.
Ready? Okay. Mr.
Call the roll,
Bradford?
please, yeah.
Aye.
Mr. Morrison?
Aye.
Ms. Pollard?
Aye.
Ms. Shranky?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Chair Cresilius?
Aye. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
We're going to move ahead now to the approval of minutes. And if you would read the minutes for the Urban Renewal and Community Development Agency first, please, Mr. Wade.
I move that the reading of the minutes for the October 22nd, 2019 meeting be waived, and the minutes of said meeting, as prepared by the secretary, be approved as written.
Second.
Second by Shramke. Those of you who were on the committee at that time, do you have any changes, corrections?
No.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bradford?
Aye.
Mr. Morrison?
Aye.
Ms. Pollard?
Aye.
Ms. Shranky?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Chair Cresilius?
Aye. Mr. Wade, if you'd read the minutes motion for the Planning Commission.
I move that the reading of the minutes for December 16, 2019 meeting be waived, and the minutes of said meeting, as prepared by the secretary, be approved as written.
Second.
Second by Morrison. Are there any corrections, comments? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bradford?
Aye.
Mr. Morrison?
Aye.
Ms. Pollard?
Aye.
Ms. Shranky?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Chair Cresilius?
Aye. We're now going to move on to our Urban Renewal and Community Development Agency business. Our first item of business pertains to 106 and 1 through 110 South 3rd Street. Ms. Shramke, would you read the roof stabilization grant proposal, please?
I will. I move that the URCDA approve the utilization of roof stabilization assistance program funds in the amount of $23,340 for roof stabilization at 106-110 South 3rd Street, subject to the work being completed by one of the qualified contractors that bid on the work.
Second.
Second by Pollard. Good evening. We're glad to have you with us, Katie.
Thank you. Thank you so much. My name is Katie Axe, for those I have not met. I am the principal planner and Paducah Main Street director for the city, and I oversee the downtown development incentive programs. For those who have been on the URCDA, you are familiar with our grant programs. For those who are new, we administer 4 downtown grant programs that facilitate the redevelopment downtown. These are city funds that are used, and they're administered by the Paducah Main Street program. So in front of you tonight, we have 3 roof stabilization projects and 1 upper story. The roof stabilization grant program was the first of the 4 downtown incentive programs that were implemented by city ordinance. The goal of that program is to do rehabilitation of roof to protect our historic buildings and our historic assets, because as you probably are familiar, when the roof goes, water infiltrates and it destroys the buildings. So we have 3 applications in front of you, 106, 108, and 110. It's 3 addresses. 1 building is one of those 3. Under the city ordinance, the City Commission allows for the URCDA to approve up to 50% of a total roof rehab project, and if it's over $50,000, then it goes to City Commission. All of these grants are under that amount. That is the 106, 110 South 3rd is for $23,000, $23,340.
And that is 50% of the total amount?
The total amount, exactly.
Of the lowest bid.
Of the lowest bid,
Correct,
yes.
yeah.
Interact that, it's,
Because you do have to have more than one bid.
yeah, they
Yep.
should have 3 bids.
They can choose whoever they want, but the most will pay.
It's 50% of the
That's
lowest.
correct. So I can speak just high level for all of the applications. We did receive 3 applications. All 3 were complete. A complete application requires 3 bids from approved contractors. We did go out this year to re-canvass the roof contractors to make sure that everybody is up to date about the requirements that the contractors have to meet per our city ordinance, which means that you've done roof projects before, you do them to high quality, and that you also sign a city warranty to ensure not only the materials but the labor is to good condition for a 10-year period. So 106 South 3rd, 315 Broadway, which is the green door. It's right next to Courtyard Antiques. And then 120 South 3rd Street, which is the Hoskins building. Those are the 3 buildings that have sought roof funds for this year.
And has the work started on these buildings yet?
No,
Thank
they
you.
have not. But per the ordinance, they do need to expend those funds by June of the grant year. So they have the next 6 months to complete that work. If they require an extension, they can come to the planning department to do that.
And is the normal procedure that this would be approved before the work is started?
Yes.
Okay.
If they have started on the roof, they're no longer eligible for the program.
Okay.
And it's paid after completion.
That's correct. It is based on a reimbursable expense. We verify, they submit a request for reimbursement to us. They submit photos and documentation along with the warranty, and then we work with our fire prevention department to go check that the work has been done per the application as well as to code.
This just has to do with the entire budget. You're recommending that the expenditure be $64,951.
Yes.
That is not, you haven't reached your total. Will the money that is left over in the fund be rolled over into the next year?
It does. Yes.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Every year, based on the city budget, the City Commission allocates $50,000. If we get grants in that amount, then we spend it. If not, it rolls over.
Perfect.
And just in my abbreviated reading of
Yes.
some of these things, there appears to be some damage already taking place. There's water coming in?
There is,
As I understand,
yes.
will this
So-
also repair that, or is that a separate? repair?
It repairs damaged roofs, and
Okay,
so
so this is just the roof.
this is just the roof.
Except for the one grant, which is for upper story, and that's different. That will help to mitigate some of those problems. And I believe if you look through your information, you saw where
Yeah,
there were
that's why I
some
was
pictures
kind
of that.
of wondering.
Right.
But that's a separate grant.
It is. So 106 to 110 South 3rd is unique in that they're coming to the URCDA for 2 grant applications, roof as well as upper story. But what I'm speaking to you about right now is just for the roof stabilization program.
And may I also ask, in your opinion, does this stabilize outside walls any better?
It helps minimize risk to brick and mortar and the structural integrity of the building, but the grant is not used to do that work. It's
And
only
the warranty does not relate to that at all?
no,
Okay,
it's
just-
only for the materials and the labor of the replacement of the roof.
Thank you.
Yes. Would you also like me to speak about the upper story at this time, or wait until?
Well, let's go ahead, I was going to say, let's go ahead and vote on this one first, and then I would love to hear what you have to
Okay,
say about that.
thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions about this particular item? We are, of course, voting on roof stabilization.
Yes, this lady. No.
Any questions, comments? Call the roll, please.
Ms. Shramky?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Morrison?
Aye.
Ms. Pollard?
Aye.
Mr. Bradford?
Aye.
Chair Casillas?
Aye. Now, the next item of business.
I move that the URDCA approve the utilization of upper story residential funds in the amount of $15,000 for one residential unit at 108 South 3rd Street, subject to the work being completed as proposed in the application received on November the 11th, 2019.
Second.
Second by Morrison.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the Upper Story residential program was established in 2014 to encourage the adaptive reuse of our historic buildings. Many of these buildings were used for light manufacturing, industrial, and commercial properties all the way back into the late 1800s. We're trying to create downtown as a 24/7 urban neighborhood. And one of the ways that we do that is to incentivize upper story living, residential living. And so this grant program was created to provide funding assistance for the renovation and build out of those upper story units. As you can see in the staff report, there is specific criteria as it relates to the application and design standards. We require that the applicant uses quality materials for their build out, down to very details about the walls, the floors, the countertops, the appliances, the windows, and the hardware. And the current property owner has completed a complete application. They are looking to establish a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condominium unit. Based on the ordinance's grant criteria, we can fund up to 20% of the total construction costs for the build out of that unit, up to $15,000. So what they are proposing is a $115,000 renovation unit, and the staff recommendation is to award the maximum amount for this, which is $15,000.
This is really kind of sad to me because I remember when these units were originally redeveloped. It's been several years ago, and they were very well done, but you know, over time, especially when you have a roof that leaks, you can have substantial damage, and so in order to make them habitable again,
You
this
have
is
to continue
wonderful.
to invest. That's
Yes.
correct. One of the things that I find to be optimistic is that we're actually starting to see redevelopment on the side streets and the expansion of residential units beyond just Broadway. So I see that as being very encouraging in terms of the overall goal of this program and Paducah Main Street more broadly.
Kathy and I were both involved in Paducah Main Street back in the day when this building was renovated. And
Yeah.
it was all private money that did it at that
Yes.
time. So it's wonderful that we now have the programs to help
Yes.
it have a new face again.
I agree.
Are there any other comments or questions on this item of business? Call the roll, please.
Ms. Shramky?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Morrison?
Aye.
Ms. Pollard?
Aye.
Mr. Bradford?
Aye.
Chair Casillas?
Aye. Ms. Pollard, you have the 315 Broadway.
I move that the URCDA approve the utilization of roof stabilization assistant program funds in the amount of $17,438 for roof stabilization at 315 Broadway, subject to the work being completed by one of the qualified contractors that bid on the work.
Second.
Second by Shramky.
I can answer any other questions
I was
about
going to
that.
say again, it's a completed, we all had that to look through, and it was very detailed. It was kind of shocking, though, to see how the deterioration on the roof, on this particular roof.
Yep, it has created water damage to the third floor and risks to the second floor also. But I find it encouraging that the property owner is looking to do redevelopment. This is a particularly challenging building given the size of it. It's 6,000 square feet per floor, 3 floors, so it's a lot of space to fill.
Any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Ms. Pollard?
Aye.
Ms. Shramky?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Morrison?
Aye.
Mr. Bradford?
Aye.
Chair Casillas?
Aye. Mr. Morrison, you have 120 South 3rd Street.
Yes, ma'am. I move that the URCDA approve the utilization of roof stabilization assistance program funds in the amount of $24,173 for roof stabilization at 120 South 3rd Street, subject to the work being completed by one of the qualified contractors that bid on the work.
Second.
Second by Shramky.
They did have one contractor that was non-responsive out of the city-approved list. So what do we do about that when they're,
Well, they responded that, but it was a non-response, saying that they did not want to
they did
submit.
not? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Wow, those two bids are very far apart. In my business, I'd be wanting a third bid because they're so.
We found that with the, each building is so unique, and given not only the materials, but also the methods to do the roof rehabilitation project, contractors can sometimes be quite far apart.
Well, it's amazing to me, too, looking at the pictures, because a lot of them have air conditioning units and heating units, and how are you going to get around that? And how, so there's a lot of work that goes into it that people don't really understand.
That's correct.
And again, all these are 10-year warranty, same.
Yes, both on materials as well as on labor.
Okay.
Are there any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Morrison?
Aye.
Ms. Pollard?
Aye.
Ms. Shramky?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Bradford?
Aye.
Chair Casillas?
Aye. That concludes the business for the Urban Renewal and Community Development Agency.
Thank you.
you so much. We're now moving ahead to the Planning Commission business. Mr. Wade, you have our first item of business.
I move that this commission remove from the agenda case CON 2019-222 for the proposed rezoning of 1140 Broadway and 1143 Kentucky Avenue. Shouldn't that be removed from the table rather than agenda?
No, it's going to be removed from the agenda completely.
Right, it had to be totally re-advertised.
Okay.
So,
Then that's my motion.
there you
Second.
are. Second by Morrison. Any comments? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Bradford?
Aye.
Mr. Morrison?
Aye.
Ms. Pollard?
Aye.
Ms. Shramky?
Aye.
Chair Casillas?
Aye. The re-subdivision that is before us
has to do with two pieces of property, one on Broadway and one on Kentucky Avenue. The request that's coming before us tonight is for those properties to be rezoned to M2 so that there will not be really spot zoning, so that it will match up with property across the street from this particular property. I'm waiting for a presentation for someone.
Which one are we doing? I'm
This is
sorry.
removed, and
Which
where
one?
it's, there's a new agenda item later, is that right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
We're not going to propose an agenda item. This is what I was asking about before the meeting, was whether we had to have a motion in order to hear the information from the people who are coming before the commission. And Tamara said, no, we do not. We can hear what you have to say, we can discuss it, and then decide what we want the motion to be. There are two different motions.
Which,
Yes, we do need to have a public hearing.
okay. But we're doing the property on Broadway in Kentucky. Okay.
Yes.
We're jumping the agenda.
Well, I moved it up because it
Okay.
seems,
I just didn't, that's
seemed
fine.
unusual to take it off the
I just wanted to
table.
make sure that's what we
Yes.
were doing.
Yes, that's what we're doing.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I thought I
easily
had talked about
confused.
that earlier.
So, I'm confused. I'm just looking at the agenda, so,
We're moving it up instead of just taking it off the table. We're going to go ahead and deal with the property. Might as well do that right now. There's no reason to hold you to the very end.
so is this the public hearing beginning?
This is the public hearing. Yes, it is. It's now open for a public hearing. And we're anxious to hear from you.
Do you want me to pass this out, or
If you'd like,
just a
yes,
small
that'd be great.
rendering, or?
Sure, that'd be great. We can even share, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So do you want me to just explain, or what?
Please do.
Please.
Okay. We originally, we've had the lot on Broadway for some time, probably 7 or 8 years. We recently acquired the property directly behind it on Kentucky. And so we were trying to do a climate-controlled storage building.
Excuse me, sir. You've been here before, have you not?
Yes.
Yeah, we were here in
Okay.
October or September.
September, I think.
Yes, and we discussed it then, and I think it was suggested at that time that it might help if we had the lot behind. So
That's
since
right.
we've purchased the lot behind, because that directly zones the other property, so since then, we
Right.
decided, well, that would make the building easier. The plan is to drive through the front of the building, exit out the back of the building onto Kentucky. And then we had a startup meeting, I guess, is that what it's called, a quick start meeting?
Kickstart.
A kickstart meeting, and it was kind of suggested then that maybe changing the zoning might make it easier rather than,
Changing the zoning of our current building, which would, 2 properties would go from, to M2.
right.
So, anyway, that might make it more palatable or whatever. And so essentially the plan is the building is, probably 100 wide by 250, 260 long.
And it would just be a climate-controlled storage. You would drive through, end up right at your actual unit. It's something that I think we discussed at that other meeting that we do within our building now. There's not a lot of climate-controlled storage in the area. Our, initial thing is we already own the lot. We want to make the block look better. We want to make everything on that block, as nice. We try to fix up our building. The building across the street is nice. We want to make the area look better. There's so much commercial property that really, if you wanted to rent a space, you've got between where we are down to the river, you could add a lot of places to pick. So we don't really, we would like to build something on that. that's something that goes along with our building. We feel like it's something that could be used by people that live in the area. If you live in Lower Town or on any of the streets right around us, most of those houses don't have garages. The plan would be you drive in your pickup truck, you drive through, you get your, lawnmower out, it's right there. You drive out the other side, it's secured, it's, safe. You could drive through at night. It would have like a key card type of operation where you drive through and, it's a safe, secure building. And it also looks nice from the outside. That rendering doesn't show that there would actually be garage doors as you drive straight through the building. So we just kind of did a quick rendering, wanted it, kind of to match the outside of our building in scale and size. We'd landscape the front and put in trees and, really try and make it as nice as possible and try and just brighten up Broadway and a block that we're in. So we'd like to do something with property, and it was suggested to us that the best way to handle it would be to add it on to this and buy this other lot, so we've done that. So hopefully that'll put us one step closer to what we'd like to do.
Help me understand the orientation as to the streets. Where is Broadway
I don't know if we
and
can-
where
would
is?
that help?
So
This would be
This is
looking toward
Broadway.
Broadway?
Yeah, that would be.
Because this looks, because see, that looks like the long end of the building, which on this plat
Well, this
faces.
Yeah.
this is supposed to
north-south.
be 260 feet long. That's just the one person we have here.
So this is the front?
This is the front.
That would be
Okay.
along here. So they went to the quick start meeting. They kind of didn't really want more than one curb cut out.
Sure.
So we'd have one curb cut out.
Right.
36 foot.
We'd have a garage
Make
door
sure everybody else understands it.
We'd have a garage door to the left, to the right, and then,
Once you
And
put in your
then-
code, if you rented a storage space, once you put in your code,
there would be garage doors back here to exit?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
yeah, so you just drive through.
straight through.
Okay, enough room on the inside of the building, so if if you were parked here, another car could get by you and just drive
be
out.
20 feet in width. So once the garage door opens, on either, there'll be two sides the same, there's 10 by 20 units and 10 by 10 units. You'd be driving down the middle of them, pull right to your unit.
So when you pulled in, if you pulled in on the left or on the right, there would be units on both sides?
On both sides.
Gotcha.
There would be a certain size, a larger size to the left, a smaller size
10
to the
by
right
20
on the left
units
side.
would be on the outside, so with the pitch and the roof. The garage door would be 14 feet high, so if you had a Penske truck,
You can
you had a
still,
26-foot Penske
Down,
truck,
you need a
you
place.
could drive in and unload it in your storage unit.
well, and I know your business too, there are sometimes people who've had like some type of a pipe burst and they had water damage or, and they want to move some things out of their house while you're working on trying to get it. And so the two businesses work hand in hand, I'm
Yes,
sure.
we're out of space now. Like if we had someone that had a huge house and they needed all their contents, we'd have to rent a space from someone. But currently, we house it within our own building. So,
We're hoping to be nice enough to where like somebody who was trying to live downtown,
Right.
who might need a garage space, this is gonna be so easy, it's just as simple as almost going to your own garage or your own home.
Right.
Push a code, door goes up, you go within 3 feet of your unit, get what you need, put it up, drive out the other end, and you're on your way. So
Right.
that's kind of the whole. So my brother has a unit like this in Indianapolis, and I saw this building about 10 years ago, and that's kind of where it got the idea. I haven't really seen one in this area. But that's, he lives in a condo in northeast Indianapolis, and
Yeah.
he's had a unit for 10 years.
Tell me how the inside of this works. So what? So you have like storage
This man.
bins or something,
It'd be
or?
like this.
Okay.
And there'll be a wall down the middle,
A wall?
down the middle, like.
So where are people driving?
I'll drop yours if that's okay.
Okay, so the driving is here and here.
This man.
These garage doors.
So that's why they only wanted us to do one curb.
Right.
First,
Storage 10 by 20s
This
on
would
this
be a wall,
side,
so this is
10
a
by 10s on this side.
And I can get through there.
Yeah, Yeah, so if Kathy
Okay.
is here, 100 units.
Yeah. And the same on this side.
It's doing pretty good. 10 by 20s.
But other than that, there's going to be a 20-foot drive to the center.
Yeah, because that's 1128.
Suggestion,
All three of them.
bought the other lot and listened to us.
Yes,
Somebody drew it.
I can imagine.
1/36 of the lot, and didn't even know they owned it.
There's a wall
And then when they,
that's separating this 10 by
and then when you wanted it, it all of a sudden became very bad.
Been there, done that.
Looks like you got our deal.
Realize they owned 1/36.
I'll leave it with you when I. Okay, I understand now.
But
This was
that is
confusing to me. I thought this was all drive-through.
Driveway was just wide enough for one vehicle.
I got it.
It's going to be,
I got it.
you're here, you drive through, and there's somebody here, you can drive.
I think it's a wonderful idea. It's a great location.
20 is kind of what we have.
20 foot?
Now, she mentioned landscaping, so what is this front now? Do we have concrete here?
20,
Do we? Or do we have concrete?
Open discussion rather than individual conversation.
This is 10 by 20 over here.
Sidewalk.
20 is
This was like more of a shred.
We're not really getting the benefit of hearing all the stuff that's going on over here.
Okay, so did you get what he was talking about? Because I thought it was confusing until he drew it for me.
Kathy, yeah, Chairman, we got two different conversations.
It's all right.
I know, well, Mr. Bradford.
Yeah.
is that you would drive in this way, you would go this way. So you could not drive in this way.
That's,
I think it,
I
wait,
thought that was
can
pretty
you
clear from
go,
your statements earlier. Like,
can you
yeah,
go
these
to
are two
the,
straight wrappers all the way through, and there's
And I'm taking
storage
out
facilities on either side.
portion of that.
10 by 20s on this side.
20 foot.
10 by 10s
Right.
here.
I don't
Gotcha.
pull over far enough. Now I've got it blocked.
They're not- I mean, that would be kind of like a
just-
Curtis. You would
Okay,
back
bring
up.
my ink pen back.
Let's, yes,
Ma'am, we're passing it.
Broadway backing up.
Yeah, that's
show
what
you
we
some.
have is.
It's erasable.
Oh, there you go.
Have you seen them?
Yes, ma'am.
So when we're in, you know.
Well, I just drove by there on the way in there, and I mean, that,
I think theoretically.
I was telling Josh that building that's there on
friction,
Kentucky Avenue looks pretty nice. Why don't you don't want to keep that?
The Robo Wash.
What, is that what that was?
Yeah. Robo Wash.
Store stuff in there, surely.
I don't know when they closed. I was just been years and years ago.
Before you can get inside.
That one?
Okay,
And is there already an
I got it.
ingress egress here, or
Right
is
now,
this a
there's
new?
currently one here.
Who'd they buy that
and there's
from? Who was that?
I'm not sure. There's some LLC, I think. Fits where to.
1/36 foot wide.
So now I think there's two.
Just with the old,
Right now, you come in
the
here.
old mid-century pieces.
I think that's how it is now. So that would have to be changed.
so are the front and the back basically duplicates of one another?
I think on the back would probably be, we probably wouldn't build it up like that on Kentucky unless that was a requirement. It would probably just be the middle.
But with the,
The garage doors would be.
right, right, right.
Yeah, we just didn't get the garage doors or anything.
Yeah.
I think the cutout would be 36. I think they.
Yes, that's
you'd
what,
have
I
to say.
think that's what Rick.
It might use some, I don't know, because they put the new curves and cutouts on Kentucky and then they redid it, so I don't know if you would use that somehow, I don't know. what it would
I mean, it may have
That
to
is
be
a state
redone.
highway, you have to jump through those hoops then.
What was ever required.
And that would just be an exit on Kentucky.
Exit.
Right.
So you would not turn in off Kentucky.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that needs to be mentioned, is that it's a one-way only, that there's no
There'd
entrance off.
only be a card on one side, so
Right.
you couldn't even really
Right.
theoretically.
Right. I think that in the back, it would really help if you did some landscaping in the back, too. I mean, this looks beautiful, but, you know.
We would.
I know.
That's part of
It's a
the.
I know.
we'd like to make
Oh, is
all
it two?
look better.
I know.
Oh, okay.
And right now, I don't know if there's pictures on here, but it's a pretty bad mess right now.
It is.
So it's definitely something that could be cleaned up.
Appreciate that.
Yes.
No, we take out.
Thank you.
Josh, educate me what preclusions are there from this remaining the current zoning and a variance being granted?
According to the KRS, whenever the planning commission has a case that necessitates a rezoning, variances can be granted as part of that, as long as the local municipality adopts a language in our zoning ordinance, which we have. What it boils down to is you all have the powers of a board of adjustment whenever it comes to rezoning cases, where you can handle conditional uses and variances at your meeting, wrapped up in the same meeting. There are 2 variances being requested on both sides in this case. And you can grant those variances.
These are
as
setback
part-
variances, right?
Yes, on the sides. And you can grant those as part of the rezoning case application.
But the usage that they're desirous of is only allowed currently under industrial zoning.
Yes.
Could that be a conditional use permit granted to allow that usage under B3?
State law doesn't allow us to do that. We can't
That's what I
vary.
wanted to ask.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, state law
But-
doesn't allow that at all.
But I think an important thing that was mentioned tonight was that we're going to be reworking the zoning ordinance. And I think one of the things that we'll wind up doing will be overlays, so that it won't be strict zoning, it'll be overlays that will have some flexibility that we don't really have right
But
now.
we don't know exactly the timeline
No, we
for that
don't.
to happen, and
But-
this is in front of us today.
I know, but I'm thinking that potentially, in the future, it could be rezoned or have an overlay that restricts what can be done. I think part of the concern of the planning department is that we would be granting an M2, and that this area really, I mean, let me just ask you the question. You're not planning on doing any manufacturing there, are you? I didn't think so. And that's the problem with the zoning ordinance right now. It doesn't give us a lot of flexibility. So our decision is either we allow them to rezone now and potentially in the future do something, or we deny them and make them wait to do it until at some point at which we've rezoned. Do you see what our options are?
Yes.
But I think the concern that I read in here is nothing against what they're building,
Right.
but should they ever sell?
Right.
It is already zoned as an M2, and anybody can do anything in there should they sell.
That's why I'm saying.
Right.
If we adopted
But-
new overlays and zoning, but.
We don't have that
We don't
now.
have that right now. That's my point.
That's the
My
rub,
point
is
is
we don't have that right
one
now.
or the other, which do you want to do? And that's the real concern here.
And also, I'd like to point out that staff's concern also has to do with the comprehensive plan, that the comprehensive plan shows this area to remain as commercial, not industrial. What we have now is buildings close to the street, lot coverages, it's walkable, that sort of thing. Where this building would be set back off the street, and there would be a gap, say, set back from the sidewalk, which wouldn't necessarily be in conformance, which is what is found there now. And also,
Well, it's what's across the street, though. The one across the street sits considerably off the,
it does.
I mean, just to compare, if we're looking at the same block, it sits probably the same distance.
And I think you're proposing too that gap be filled with things like trees
Trees,
and,
yeah.
That, at least that's what I'm getting from you. Am I right on that?
Yeah, I mean, we'd want it to have an attractive appearance, and then I didn't say this, but I'm sorry, I'm interrupting. We'd probably put a fence to the left and just close off that whole area if you're looking at the building to the right. So there'd just be a
Between the-
fence between that building and the other
the
building
upholstery
that just
shop?
kind of
Yes, sir.
even.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
kind of what we're thinking, because there's probably going to be,
Probably both directions we'd put a fence, right?
yeah, just kind of close it off so no one can, I mean, there are some people that live in the building behind, that's where that car wash is, just try and make it a little more just secure, where someone, isn't, so.
What did you say, there's people who live back there?
I think in that car wash, it's kind of like got some people that.
Yeah, I mean, it's homeless people.
Is the car
We've
wash-
had theft in our building, and I think that's kind of where
What
it
are you
comes
talking about?
from. We have
car
alarms
wash
now.
is
so-
is it remaining?
No.
Well, there's a
No,
building.
it's not operating. It's been out.
But there's a building
Well, I
there.
thought that would be demolished for you to build.
Oh, it will. I'm just saying right now, that's,
But there's a
Property
building
owners.
that was.
so we'd get rid of all, I mean, this would
Oh,
sit on top of that.
Jefferson?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm
I was
sorry.
gonna say, yeah.
I'm sorry, yeah, we'd get rid of all of
You
that.
got like this area up here.
Could you show me which lot you purchased
Gotcha.
since last time we met?
Cross Broadway and on the other side.
Part of this or the?
I think it's must be over here.
That's the existing building.
Okay, that's why you bought it.
So where,
Where is this building? Is
Okay,
it
so this is,
here? Is that the-
this is where we are. This is our
Yes.
building right now.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
And right now, that car wash is right
They
here.
didn't have climate controlled storage.
where are people
Then over
living?
here?
They're not living,
Really,
they're
the simplest thing, I
homeless
think
people.
you
They're
better
basically
change
in
Oh,
the building.
okay, okay.
I thought you meant it was a residence.
No,
Oh,
no.
no.
So I couldn't, that's why I couldn't fathom that.
That's what we were concerned about.
But that's going to go away.
All of that'll be gone. That sits right here. So we'd probably put a fence across here and here. Maybe
Josh,
a
is
fence
a
so it's
rewording?
kind of closed.
So nobody
Right.
So people don't use that as a
couldn't
walkway.
drive to drive back through there.
Right.
This right now is an alley,
Yeah.
so I don't know.
It's my understanding that we do have authority as planning commission to recommend
This
amendments to the zoning ordinance.
This is a
Would that be a possibility to add in a facility that would be,
It's not their lot. it's the
this would
edge
fit
of
into
Yeah,
that
you can't
category,
put a-
into the
you cannot put a
B3 zone
fence.
definition?
Across
It
the alley.
could.
Oh, no, I don't know. Yeah.
You could right there.
One here.
And you could right here,
And
too.
probably here.
I'll wait till I
Yeah,
get
we
done
probably
talking, I
leave this
guess.
part open.
You'd have to
I mean,
leave
you
the
always
alley.
have
Because then I'll have to say it again to Bob and
Yeah,
David.
you'd leave that up.
Yeah, just to make it easier to drive
Okay.
on. It's hard to tell.
I mean, we don't clarify.
I want to
Thank you
change the
so
zone.
much.
The building
Josh.
on the hill really doesn't fit
Yeah.
industrial warehousing.
Well, I think we're all struggling with this because I don't think anybody wants to say no to something, because I mean, for me personally, I want to get out of the way of people trying to make investments into the community and improve the way places look. I think we're all scared of jumping industrial across Broadway.
But
and I-
Josh, from what I see on the recommendations and the staff's, whatever, that if we would approve this as an M2, we could put these restrictions, the only uses permitted or principal uses in the B3 zone, and present it to City Commission and, go from there. So
Yeah.
therefore, there is an out on trying to protect this property from being a warehouse from what appears here, correct?
We did present a motion to you in the event that you would like to forward a positive recommendation to where we would afford some protections, yes. Staff's recommendation is still denial to City Commission based on the comprehensive plan, state law, if there's been changes of an economic, physical, or social nature, which there have not been. The area is walkable, and there could be things happen down the road if these protections weren't in place for there to be kennels, junkyards, things like that. Not saying there would, but there could.
But still, what we are proposing could include that we limit the uses to be the uses of a B3 zone. We could do that.
Yes, you could.
And
do
those
that.
conditions cannot be changed in the future
They can
without
only-
coming before.
Yeah, yes, they'd have to come back.
Let me interrupt for a second. While we're having side conversations over here, we discussed another possibility in that it is within our power as planning commission to forward recommendations for amendments of the zoning ordinance to the city commission. In this circumstance, we could ask that an amendment be drafted to change the definition of B3 zone to allow a use such as this. And to me, I
Limited
think
use.
that sounds like
Additional.
something that would be more palatable to me, because I don't really want to change it to industrial on the side of Kentucky. So
Very much against that.
if you don't rezone it at all, then you don't have any problem with the neighboring properties in the future coming and saying, we want to be industrial too, or, this property changing hands in 30, 40 years, and that future owner wanting to do something different. So I think that's what I would want to do, is just change the definition. And I don't know how we would classify it to put it in there. That would be something that we'd probably ask staff to do some research
We'd
and
have to.
come up with how we would define it to allow a facility such as this.
That is much more palatable. Please understand that will require us to table this again.
Yeah.
It's okay.
And let me just make sure that I understand. None of the property that you currently have is M2.
No.
No, it's not.
It's just next to.
Yes,
And
sir.
Across the street.
Across the street.
Across the street,
Across
right.
Kentucky.
Right, yeah.
And we're talking about the old
This going this
railroad
way, yeah.
Right.
facility, right?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
it's
I
across the
think
street.
tabling isn't, a wonderful idea, but I think in this case, it's really important because,
We want to get it
And
right.
we're fine with that. I mean, because we were kind of going along what people have suggested to us. We're not, I mean, we just want to build a building. That's not,
We wanna do it
we're
right,
agreeable.
so-
I appreciate what you're doing.
You know, and
What
Exactly.
you've done
I
so
think
far.
what we've researched in the past is that they have done that. They have made allowances because zoning was done a
In
long
other
time ago.
cities, you're talking
And
about?
that when the zoning was done, they didn't have climate-controlled storage back
Right,
in the 40s when they
exactly.
did, or whenever the zoning has been done. I think that's what we had talked about before, but it didn't seem like anybody wanted to try that, and it was suggested to try this route. Either route is fine with us. We just
Yeah.
would, like to,
Get it done.
I can see how you wouldn't want outdoor type storage. There's nothing against like what Premier Storage is building on the south side behind the Walmart, but you probably wouldn't want that on Broadway. I wouldn't want it on
No.
Broadway.
yeah.
No.
But ours is going to be, basically look like it's going to kind of a retail building.
I mean, like other buildings that are down Broadway, there's one behind that little food kind of truck right there, and it's basically just, I mean, I think our building would look nicer. It's going to be a newer building, but it's just garages right on top of the sidewalk. I mean, it's essentially the same thing, and they could be storing the same thing in there for all we know. I mean, we really don't know, you know what I mean?
But that's where careful drafting would come into play, in that I think we can all agree that an exterior storage facility surrounded by chain link fence with barbed wire on the top
It's not
Yeah,
what we
no.
want.
feels
No.
industrial.
No.
This building doesn't feel industrial.
Yeah.
No.
So Go
Just,
ahead.
just talked to Tamara just a second ago. Staff's opinion on that would be not to do a text amendment for one specific use, but we would side with the motion,
Second motion there.
the second motion
Positive
to
motion.
approve it with the conditions on it, is how we would prefer if you all would like to forward that positive recommendation. However, overall, and I'll reiterate again, staff's recommendation is not to send a positive recommendation to the city commission.
Can I ask, did Rick Murphy have any concerns about traffic?
Not about traffic, it was more about the curb cuts.
Well, that's traffic, isn't it? For my mind, it is. When I'm traveling Broadway,
As far as traffic flow, no. As far as getting cars off Broadway where they can line up to get into the building, yes. The building was, I believe it was shortened
Yes.
based on his
I think we did,
recommendation.
yeah. What he recommended, that space-wise.
That way, there wouldn't be cars or trailers lined up on Broadway where they can
right.
Trying to make that
sit
turn.
far enough back.
And Rick is comfortable that that will not be the case. Is that
That's-
fair?
That was my understanding coming out of the Kickstart meeting. However, if a positive recommendation is sent and changed at city commission level, we would then get a site plan where we would work with that, where Rick would lay eyes on it again.
I'd feel much more comfortable with that.
Sure.
But he has the current site plan before you has been modified based on some of
Yes.
Rick's
Yes.
suggestions.
Yes.
Yes.
And also, you've listened to input from us, so that's good that you're willing to be
Yeah.
receptive to what they've offered.
And as far as I won't call it a facade, but the
Right.
front
Yes.
of you did mention there's actually office space there.
It
and
won't
will-
really be office space. It'll just be more of like a foyer and entry.
So I'm
You just
looking in the,
walk-
I'm walking down the street, I'm looking in the window. I
It
know
would-
it's a curb appeal type thing, but
Yes,
that's
it
what
would
this is
look-
all about.
yes. It's a 20 by 20 space.
Okay.
Or no, a 10
And with
by 20
windows,
space.
what kind of windows, doors, are we?
Probably
and
look
I'm not
very
looking
close
for
to what the-
specific, but,
Well,
come out
very
in the
close
site
to what
plan.
the outside of our building
Yeah.
looks like. That's kind
Okay.
of what we're trying to, which is Broadway Interiors.
So,
We had to build a
yes,
new
gotcha.
Trying to
facade.
duplicate
Gotcha.
the same.
Right.
Yeah, it's the same
Design.
size doors.
Thank you.
And the
And I
windows-
realize that's subject to
Well,
some
we want it
changes,
to look
but.
good. The windows on the brick are really just false windows. So it's kind of to give it more of a look like there is a window there rather than just a great big straight wall. And then we put, trees and whatever. There'd be a fence that went straight across close to the front of the building to the building next to us. So it would kind of close it off so we don't we don't want to park there. We're going to just landscape that front area. And it'd probably be remaining parking lot, I guess, behind there. I mean, because you could access that from the alley.
Alley for behind.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a
Thank you.
question. If we were to follow the staff's recommendation that we deny it under, no matter what, the rezoning or text amendment or doing it with classifications, what would you do with the property after that? Do you have any idea?
We'd probably try and sell it. I mean, we just bought a lot hoping we could do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So-
Josh, could you repeat again, what was your saying that, based on probably Tamara's input just now, what, you would not be supportive of?
Of a text amendment because it's only, would be changing the text for one specific use.
One use.
We would rather see the second motion where we would have a little bit of input and control on the facade and the use is allowable.
They
But that
prefer a
would
rezoning
require
with
a
restrictions rather
rezoning,
than a
correct?
change of the zone.
If it is rezoned, that's what the conditions we would attach.
And say one more time what they are.
You'd prefer to rezone it to M2 with the conditions that you all.
Essentially, in neither case, you could only do a B3, put anything on there that's allowed in B3, but you're just 6 to 1, half dozen to another.
What would be the wrong with adding commercial zone or storage to the, I mean, I'm not.
It's in
following
there.
It's just a single, they're not looking, my understanding, they're not looking to change it for a single,
For one
Right.
use.
for one use at this time.
Right.
If the chairman would allow, I'd like to interject. and
Yes,
explain.
please.
The reason why I would strongly recommend not pursuing addressing a total ordinance change in this situation is because it has a ramification, or it has a reining effect on everything else that is zoned B3 or whatever whichever avenue you wanted to go through. It's opening up a whole lot of unintended consequences. And so when you change the ordinance, you need to be really thoughtful about that and understand how that's all going to affect. The second motion that you have, that Josh has prepared for you, basically would allow for all the B3 uses.
Yeah,
plus
what's wrong
this.
with that one? I mean, we're having a lot of discussion, and I understand changing the ordinance, but what is the negative on the second, the B3 zone and the uses only to be used is the B3 zone on this facility? I mean, is there a negative to this?
The negative to this is, is first of all, you have basically your zoning ordinance, your zoning map is no longer very truthful. And it begs the question of why the M2 was even asked for to begin with. Actually, the warehousing is permitted in the MU1. So that indicated that there were grander designs than that, and that's why we went forward with the recommendation of denial, because the M2 and those associated activities are inappropriate there, and so that's what they asked for, and that's what we were responding to. The B3, the compromise of the B3 and the restriction for the warehousing is our best attempt at some level of compromise, given your previous comments at the previous hearings. Right now, our zoning ordinance does not have a lot of design, and that's exactly what
Yes.
you all are talking about, is
Yes.
a lot of design
Yes.
elements. We don't have that latitude, nor have the plans been submitted that would give you that control or assurance.
Right.
Is there a commitment to go with that facade? Is there a commitment to match the facade of the adjacent building?
No, but there
No,
is.
there's not.
But there is the statement that the design and elevations subject to the zoning administrator's approval. So if they change the whole thing, this is part of the variance that we're saying, include that B3, but then they still have to submit things to your approval.
Right, and if you want to do that, that is exactly why we crafted it that way.
Yeah.
But
So,
then
I mean,
it doesn't apply only to them, it applies to anyone in that area.
No, the only place this
Only
is
to them.
okay.
It's only this one.
Okay.
Only this one.
That's what I wanted. This does not set a precedent.
No.
Well,
The
no.
only
It's a
precedent would be
case-by-case
the
sort of
next guy can
thing,
come and
It's
say,
right.
"You did it already."
It's a restriction on this particular.
This particular project.
This only applies to this property.
Right.
Uh-huh.
The
Agreed.
restrictions would.
Right,
Yes.
right.
Now, one thing that doing this doesn't change is the fact that it would technically change it to an M2 zone, and that now the surrounding properties are touching an M2 zone. And 20 years from now, when none of us are on this commission, those properties are going to still be touching an M2 zone. And somebody can come and say,
That
well,
is
we're
true.
bordering industrial, so why can't we be industrial?
On Broadway.
On Broadway, yeah.
Well, it can if you do the same restrictions as they have done.
Yeah.
But once we get into a routine of doing that over and over again, it kind of negates what the zoning was put in place for to begin with.
Well, that's why I'm hoping that the work that we're going to be doing in the next couple of years will help to mitigate some of those problems.
I still like the text amendment. I know that staff would prefer not to have a text amendment, but I mean, that's what careful drafting is for, is to make sure that it is as limited as possible if you want to allow that, because I mean, the only other thing we're looking at is saying no altogether. I mean, are there any other circumstances under which we could allow this building to be built? Would the staff recommend approval under any set of circumstances legally or under the zoning ordinances as they are now?
No, staff would not recommend to have warehousing on Broadway. Broadway's not for warehousing.
I don't think that's the question. The question is, how can this facility, which is not warehousing, it's commercial storage, how can it, under what circumstance would it be allowed under the given zoning ordinance? It sounds like there isn't one.
It's not.
Again, we would not recommend storage, commercial storage, warehousing, personal storage on Broadway. However, we are not, staff is not the decision makers, and so we try to support our commission. And if you so desire, the way we suggest is by going forward with a land use restriction as outlined in the second motion.
So it's M2 with restrictions, basically, or conditions. Did we get any response from anyone that,
Neighbors?
this is a public
anybody?
hearing, so, I mean, we've got these good folks here, but no neighbors or anything issued any complaints or raised any concerns or eyebrows,
I've
hearing
not heard
that?
from anybody.
Were they told it was a self-storage facility going in?
Yes, climate control.
Positive or
storage building.
negative responses? None.
No responses at all.
Wow. I'm kind of surprised by that. Am I the
Well,
only one that's?
I'm not considering some of the property on Kentucky Avenue, not you keep your
Yeah.
property, but some of the other property.
Yeah, but Broadway? I'm kind of surprised by that, I guess. Just-
I think the area we're in on Broadway too, because we're not really considered historical, we're not really considered Midtown, we're not really, I mean, I understand we're still Broadway, but that's, and we
You're-
love Broadway, that's why we bought a building on Broadway and
Well,
redid the
you're-
whole thing.
You're 120 feet from the railroad tracks.
Yeah, I mean,
That's-
ours is, we
kinda
couldn't,
sets the tone.
when we first got our building, we tried to come to the city and tried to figure out, hey, do we qualify for anything? And we were told we didn't qualify for anything where we were because of where our location was. We could, because of the age of the building, you know, try and get some historical just because of the age of it, but we weren't really, we've never been included in any Main Street or, you know what I mean? We're kind of in no man's land, and what's kind of our objective, because there's, between Midtown and downtown, there's a lot of area that I think it has looked better in the last few years, but that's our goal, is to make it look better. And I think it's providing a service. I mean, we're not trying to have something that's not appealing to the eye. We want it to be attractive to the eye. We want it to make our building look better. I want it to make my business better. And like I said, there's so much commercial property that I wouldn't build a commercial building because I couldn't charge, I would have to charge so much more than what you could rent for right down the street. My objective is to make it look as nice as I can. So, and it helps my business. I mean, we already store things in our building. We do, store things, that's part of our business. So it enhances our business. It enhances, we have two businesses. We have ServPro and Broadway Interiors in the building. So it's part of what we kind of do, and I don't need my building to be larger, I don't need more office space, but it's something that would help my business, if we had it, because I would probably we may use 10% of the space, just for our own businesses.
Let me ask Mr. Summer, Ms. Tamara, also, are there any indications from any other, at this point, asking for an M2, or I know it's close to where it is, and there's the tire place, and is there any manufacturers looking to get changes?
No.
So that hasn't, any more than there were responses. So it's kind of mute on both ends at this. Okay, thank you.
Well,
It just, minors, I guess, but
we get a lot of inquiries.
I'm sure.
2 blocks down, there was an inquiry for a retail building on the other side of the street. But again, we get a lot of inquiries, and
retail would
that be a
fit.
recent one.
Yeah, you're not talking about retail manufacturing, you're talking about
Retail.
retail.
Yeah.
I think I have all I need.
Are there any other comments? Then we're going to close the public hearing. And now we need to decide which one of these two.
Madam Chairman, I move that the Planning Commission receive or recommend to the City Commission that the case ZON 2019-245 pertaining to 1128 and 1140 Broadway and 1143 Kentucky Avenue be rezoned to the M2 zoning classification. I further move that side yard variances of 8.5 feet on the east side of the lot and 13.5 feet on the west side of the lot be granted in accordance with section 126-176, subsection E of the Paducah zoning ordinance. I further move that the following conditions be attached to this forwarded recommendation. A, the only uses permitted are principal uses in the B3 zone and a self-storage facility design. B, the design of the elevation shall be subject to the zoning administrator's approval.
Second.
Second by Morrison. Comments? I think we've had a pretty good hearing. It's first from everybody. Are you ready for the vote? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Bradford.
Aye.
Mr. Morrison.
Aye.
Ms. Pollard.
Nay.
Ms. Schramke.
Aye.
Chair Casillas.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Ms. Schramke, you have our next case, 325 Country Club Lane.
I move that this commission receive and file the application of Mitchell Stewart for the proposed re-subdivision of property located at 325 Country Club Lane. I further move that the requested waiver of the public hearing and the dedication of streets be given, and approval of the submitted plat file dated December 13th, 2019 be granted.
Second.
Second by Morrison. Hello.
Hey, how
Thank
are
you
y'all
for your
tonight?
patience.
It was a long meeting tonight, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all right. We need those every once in a
Way
while.
to start the year.
Yeah. This is some property that Mr. Stewart bought in recent months on Country Club Lane. It's a house and lot. The lot's excessively large, very large side yard, and he wishes to divide this into 2 tracts, and we're abolishing a lot of interior lot lines.
And believe the intent is to build a new single-family home on the
Yes,
vacant lot.
that's correct.
When this subdivision was laid out, were there any front or side yard restrictions?
No, this is a very old
That's what I
subdivision.
wonder.
Yeah.
So by establishing a 12.95 or foot side yard, we're not violating any of those restrictions? Okay.
Actually, that side yard, the reason that's the size it is, it's in order to take in the water meter that serves this house.
Yeah.
Well, it gives us a 75-foot road frontage as well, but it needed to be that wide in order to take in the water meter.
Well, I know we had less than 5 feet on the other side, so I just figured that it
Yeah.
wouldn't matter. There weren't any side yard restrictions.
No.
And by having the frame playhouse on its own lot,
Can you build
Well-
a house there now?
that's an accessory.
That's a little
I was gonna
small
ask about
for
that.
living quarters, isn't it?
I was going to say, is that going to have to move, or?
A tiny house.
Yes, a tiny house, for sure. Are there any other comments, questions? Call the roll, please.
Ms. Shramky?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Bradford?
Aye.
Mr. Morrison?
Aye.
Ms. Pollard?
Aye.
Chair Casillas?
Aye. Mr. Bradford, you have 5360 US Highway 60, please.
I move that this commission receive and file the application of Falconite Real Estate Holdings LLC for the proposed re-subdivision of property located at 5360 Old US Highway 60. I further move that the requested waiver of the public hearing and the dedication of streets be given, and approval of the submitted plat file dated December 13, 2019 be granted.
Second?
Second by Wade.
This tract is being created for a new commercial building. This is in front of Menards, so we expect to see a lot of new things pop up along there, and apparently this is going to be the first. so-
Out parcels.
Yes.
I can remember going to Kentucky Oaks Mall when it first opened with my brother-in-law, who was an urban planner, and he said, boy, all these out parcels out here are going to really, and I was like, out parcels? What are you talking about? That was 30 or 40 years ago.
Is tract A1B the parcel that Menards is located on, or is that the one behind it?
Menards is A1A.
Okay. That's kind of what I thought.
And the primary access will be from the rear?
Correct.
That's what I thought. Now, will there be any access off of Old US Highway 60?
They do have that ability to do that.
Okay.
I think there may be both, actually.
Okay.
There hasn't been a site plan put together for the building that's going in there yet, but they very well maybe access front and back.
Well, that's the case for several of the properties that are
I guess you're far enough away from the
closer into town.
access road that
Mhm.
they might grant it.
Well, that's Old US 60,
Oh,
not the main road, the old
Yeah.
Oh, I
road.
was, I'm
Old
sorry, I was
60.
reading.
yeah.
Yes.
This one,
Oh, there is that
Yeah.
already. I'm sorry.
Old Road. Any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bradford?
Aye.
Mr. Morrison?
Aye.
Ms. Pollard?
Aye.
Ms. Shramky?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Chair Casillas?
Aye. If there is no other business to come before the commission tonight, we stand adjourned at 7 o'clock.
7.